Hello, women of the Channel Leadership Network, and welcome to another Woman of the Week. I'm Jackie Rives, your community leader. And today I'm pretty excited to introduce you to Renee Tarun, Deputy CISO and Vice President of Information Security for Fortinet. Hi, Renee. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Jackie.
All right. I love dipping into a little of the icebreakers. So let's start out with, where do you live and where did you grow up, if that's different?
Actually, I live in Pasadena, Maryland, and I literally live about 4 minutes from the house that I grew up in. And my brother is about 8 houses down the street. So my family is all quite within a matter of minutes from one another.
That is very cool and not totally common today, just with people moving all over the world. So I envy that in you. That's awesome. All right. So what's a little known fact that you're willing to share with us?
Sure. A lot of people don't know I do grow my hair out rather long. And the reason why I do that is because I actually donate my hair. I donate my hair usually to charities that provide wigs for kids. And I've done it about 4 or 5 times. But actually, I was actually fortunate enough at one time because, most cases you don't know where your hair is going or who ends up ultimately, with your hair. But I actually had a coworker that was battling cancer and she needed a wig for her daughter's wedding. And so one of the times I donated my hair actually went to a coworker so that she could, have a wig for her daughter's wedding.
Oh, that's so amazing. That is not an easy feat for those of you that aren't aware. That takes a lot of dedication and taking care of your own hair and not processing it. And I just think that's such a amazing thing that you're doing for women out there. So thank you on their behalf.
Absolutely. It's great.
All right. So let's dive into your career path and how you reached this very amazing position that you have today.
So I started out my career, I graduated college and I was recruited into the United States Secret Service. So I spent about 8 years with the Secret Service doing a variety of IT and security jobs for both the protective and the investigative missions for the Secret Service. And then I was recruited up to the National Security Agency. So I spent the rest of my majority of my career, 15 plus years at NSA, doing, again, a variety of jobs, anywhere from development and engineering to operations, to policy and strategy, to actually, serving on behalf of the director down at the White House, working within the interagency community, building, joint collaboration and policies and strategies for cyber for the nation. And then after a while, it was, looking for change, trying my hand to going out into the private sector. And so I want to go into an organization because, doing good for the nation, a lot of my assignments, working at NSA was really focusing on helping and protecting the critical infrastructure. So I really wanted to join an organization where I felt I was still, serving my nation and doing good for the nation. And so I joined Fortinet, who, is in every critical infrastructure with their technologies and solutions. And so, focusing on helping them, internally and, helping our customers.
That is so impressive. I honestly had no idea of your background. So, wow, I'm kind of speechless. That's pretty amazing that you started in the Secret Service to the NSA and now branching out into the private sector, being able to share that knowledge and experience with Fortinet. So I am sure that they are absolutely thrilled to have you on the team. What is something you've learned that you wish you knew early in your career?
Well, I think for me, it's really not being afraid to take chances and not being afraid to take of change. A lot of times throughout my career, I've been asked to take on, a certain project or take on a new position, and I knew I'm like, this is not what I want to do. I'd rather live in the woods and eat dirt than have to do this. But, a lot of times, after you get in the job and you learn it, and you realize, this is not something I probably want to do for the rest of my career, but it's something that, I can take away some, additional skills that maybe I didn't have before, or I was able to increase my network of people that I know that I could reach out to and, for help. And when I went on to other jobs and other projects. So for me, it's, not being afraid of taking the chances and going outside that comfort zone and taking other jobs, other opportunities to kind of make my skills more well-rounded, and not being afraid of opportunities and not being afraid of change. But that also means, having sense to know that, when you're not in a good environment, making sure that, you need to make a change because, you're not happy. Because ultimately, we all spend a lot of time in our career and in our jobs. And I find that if you're not happy in your job, that impacts the rest of your life. That affects your home life. And so, not being afraid to make the changes, and take a chance on other opportunities and projects, but also knowing, when to leave a bad environment as well.
I love that you hit it from both sides on evaluating, is this an opportunity to learn new skills or lessons and experiences, or is this a time that you need to make a change for a better, well-rounded life? So amazing answer. I love it. Let's pivot to, what challenges have you faced in your position as a leader, which I'm sure there's many to choose from.
I mean, obviously, especially if you're in IT and security, there's always those challenges when you're fighting for resources, because again, IT and security is always considered an enabler of the mission. But I also see, as a leader, especially a female leader, there's always been challenges, from a standpoint of, peers, taking your input and value, taking you seriously, having some of that, respect, especially on the technical level. There's been many times in my career where I've been in meetings and, I can tell, my peers like, hey, this is what we need to do from a security standpoint. You shouldn't be coding this way, or you shouldn't be leaving these, ports open, because I know a sophisticated adversary, especially a nation state actor, is going to exploit them, but won't listen to me because, don't feel that because I'm a woman, I must not be technical. So those are type of things that, as a leader, you need to start figuring out how you work around that. And so that means, building an alliance, building, leveraging your network of, colleagues that can kind of help advocate, and kind of make some of those people listen. But that also means, using different techniques in your trick bag to, making those people that won't listen, make them think it's their idea. At the end of the day, you still get your job done and accomplished. If they let them think it's their idea, that's what you kind of need to do to get the job done. I've been in meetings where I've talked with vendors, and I had a high school work study shadowing me. And the entire time the vendor sat there and talked to the high school work study. And even the high school work study picked up on it, was kind of like looking at, giving me side glances, because they started to feel uncomfortable. And at the end of the presentation, they slid their packet of briefing material to the high school work study, and he slid it over to me, and I politely slid it back to the vendor and said, thanks, I've heard enough. Because, even though a high school work study, had to inform them, she's the chief. I mean, this is her decision to make. And so it really comes down to people underestimating, just because I'm a female, that doesn't mean that I'm not technical and that I'm not a leader. And unfortunately, you still have that today going on. I think we've as women made significant strides. Mm-hmm. But you still see, in the fields of IT and security, women are still minority. We're breaking down those barriers slowly but surely. But again, these are some of the challenges that you still face, and you just got to figure out how you're going to navigate them, and work through them. And that's why, as women, we need to be working together to help build each other up, and leveraging each other to help advance our careers, and our efforts.
Yeah, I love, I can relate to much of what you're talking about. I love that you gave some great advice and strategies for navigating that to kind of get your mission, or task accomplished. I know that those will definitely resonate with our community for sure. The next question I have is always one of my favorites, because it's so interesting for me to hear all the different tools and tips that people get, or strategies on protecting and creating that work-life balance.
So for me personally, this is one that I struggled with, especially early on in my career. It was very much, and a lot of that was the jobs. A lot of the jobs I was in were very operational jobs where it required, being on call 24 by 7. Um, you know, Getting a call in the afternoon, you're on a plane that evening. And so for me, the biggest, I think, eye opener for me was when I had my first child. I now have 2 children. And I think for me, that was a big wake up call. And for me, that kind of helped put my perspective in place. I kind of sat back and had to reevaluate, what was most important. And I'm not saying your job's not important, but I also know that, having that, influence and being there for your kids and your family, you don't get a do-over, with your kids. And so for me, that meant, really looking at my calendar. If there was a sporting event or something that I needed to be at, that meant blocking off my calendar to ensure that I was there. But also ensuring that I put things on my calendar, like I block time for lunch. And I know there are some days where, that lunch may be later or skipped, but making sure that that's, not the norm. And so ensuring that, I'm making sure that I'm taking care of myself, but also making sure that I'm there for my family. That also means things like implementing in my family, we have 0 electronics at the table. So when my family sits down to dinner, there's no electronics, which for me personally sometimes can be hard, especially if my phone's sitting on the counter. I hear a ding and my head turns around and my kids will sit there and call me out. They'll look on the table like, no electronics at the table. And so doing that and just recognizing what matters most in life. Like I said before, you don't get a do-over at being a parent. Kids grow up fast, as I'm learning more and more every day. And think about what's most important. I love what I do. I love the job. But at the end of the day, I want my tombstone to say, I worked real hard. And that's it. I want my tombstone to say that, I was a good wife. I was a good mother. I was a good daughter, a good sister, and a good friend. And so, reminding myself, and I'm not saying that sometimes, I don't make mistakes and I slip up and, I lose that line between the work-life balance. But again, but ensuring that, one, taking control back of my calendar, implementing rules of, no phones at the table, and setting time limits, saying, all right, unless it's an absolute emergency, I don't take calls, after a certain point in the evening, because that's my family time. So things like that.
All such great advice. I love that you also pointed out that, we're not aiming for perfection. We're just aiming to do better. You're right. I would encourage listeners, especially those a bit younger in their career, to start implementing these lessons and find what works for you. All of our priorities are different, but the idea is to create that balance of, what is important to us with our jobs. But I also love that you brought into it self-care, and something as simple as lunches should not be that hard to try to schedule for ourselves. So
also thinking about, how much time we spend at our desk, scheduling 15-minute breaks to get up and just walk around, just go for a quick walk. I find when, a lot of times when I'm sitting there and I'm banging out emails that, you just get sometimes overwhelmed, and, you may have a delicate email that you need to write, and you need to choose your words wisely. And so sometimes I find that, you get up, just go take a walk, clear your mind, and then come back. I think that's so much help, beneficial from a self-care perspective.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That's such great advice. Some that I should definitely practice better at myself. I love that. This is great. All right. I think we have time for one more. So let's find out how you define successful leadership.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, you as a leader need to be able to motivate and inspire people. And that not only means the people that work for you, but that's also the people that work with you. Because at the end of the day, sometimes leaders lose focus, that, they get so focused on doing the mission that they lose sight of the people. And at the end of the day, if you're not focused on the people, without the people, you have no mission. Mm-hmm. And so that also means, doing the job, doing it in a way that's, doing it the right way, and just not necessarily doing it just because it's the easy way, doing it because it's right, doing it with honesty, doing it with an integrity, and ensuring that you're a good communicator, collaborator, not only with your people, but also across your organization. So that means your peers, that means people above you, the people below you. And being able to, ensure that, you can delegate when you need to, and have trust and confidence in your staff. And so again, it's a combination of, again, motivating, inspiring people, being a good communicator and collaborator, and being effective. Being effective, but also knowing that even on some days you're going to have the best laid out plan, and guess what? It's not going to go the way you expected. And so you have to understand that some days you're going to have to be agile, you're going to have to be flexible, and you're going to have to roll with it, and just be mindful of that.
Thank you so much, Renee, for sharing some of your story and advice and allowing us to celebrate you as our Woman of the Week.
Thank you, Jackie. It's been a pleasure to be here, and I'm truly honored, and thank you.
All right, you heard it here. Please be sure to comment and give Renee some of your feedback and how her story resonated with you. Until then, happy Wednesday.